Welcome back to the channel. I hope you all are having a great weekend. After seeing the news, finding out about it last night, I wanted to get out a video about what's happening with the Pulsechain launch. So there's been a lot going on over the last several hours, which has caused me to take a look at the situation and title this video, Pulsechain is worse than Ethereum. So after a long-awaited period for the launch of Pulsechain and release for some of the community members and breathing a sigh of relief, finally that things were over. As we get moving into this, we're starting to find out that there are a lot of things that are happening that weren't considered. Now, given the alternatives of nothing being launched at all as such, I think most would rather be, at least in this situation, where the system is turned on than what's actually happening. And what we're talking about is we're talking about people are discovering that it's taking up to like 40,000 post tokens just to perform a transaction. Now, talk about high fees as such. This is already seemingly showing to be a disaster on the level of Ethereum. If you look at something like Ethereum, fees took years and years to get to where they were. But with Pulsechain, it seems like this is going to be an overnight thing, right? So, it's just basically it's making the blockchain unusable, right? And remember, this is supposed to be part of taking the pressure off Ethereum, being the anti-Ethereum, right? And of course, I think this is just something that wasn't factored in. I think this is just one of those unforeseen occurrences that wasn't measured. But some of the excuses that are coming up as to what's causing this, because it's not that many people who are able to even really interact with the chain. The average person is probably walking around with a few million posts, so the other people don't have any to do any transactions, so it's very difficult to get in as such. Now, some would probably be led to believe the fact of the matter is I'm one of the lucky ones because I was able to participate in any sacrifices like on day one, right? So I do hold Pulse and Pulsex. A lot of people say, "Oh, you just on Pulse and such." Part of the problem, guys, is that we've so much embraced the narrative and tried to get to pumping our bags by any means necessary that we have foregone the technology even working, right? Some of us still believe it's not important that the technology works, but let me pose a question to you all, right? If it's not important the technology works or not, just as long as the price is moving, then what do we call it when we can't even perform a transaction or push a transaction through? Isn't that part of the technology that we're saying is not important? When there's a 42,000 token gas fee, right? Is the technology not important then, right? And so part of the issue that some are saying is because there's such limited validators, right? That's what's causing the prices to go up. And so you get more validators in and such. But to become a validator, this is probably a problem as well. 32 million posts to become a validator. Now, that doesn't seem like a problem at this point in time, but think about how expensive posts can become. right? Especially in the short term. So you're probably not going to solve that validator issue. Also, uh, we still don't know how the rest of the cryptocurrency community is exactly going to embrace Pulsechain. After all, we have to keep in mind that to people outside of the Pulse ecosystem, Hex ecosystem, that Pulse is still not uh, uh, composed of the principles of which many think are important to a blockchain, right? To a blockchain's governance, right? And of course, we're talking about the ownership of the blockchain, who holds the much of what and who can control what, right? So we still haven't crossed that hurdle yet. Um, so that could limit the validators, right? But we also have the problem of our friends at the Zen community who have been notorious for raising fees on Bitcoin, right? So if that happens to on the Pulse chain, which it likely is, which is kind of prompting me to believe that Zen's going to probably emerge in one of the better situations, because they would have acclimated people to Zen, and more people from the Pulse chain and so on. And they're going on to launch their own chain, which I think is a good idea, right? Uh, Now, would they have the same problem as Pulse chains having? I don't know. Uh, Eventually they could, right? But one thing about the Zen project so far is they seem to be quick about trying to find a solution to certain certain things, right? So this is what we're facing, guys. You have to ask yourself, many of you out there in the Pulse and Hex community who probably, uh, you know, if you look at something like whether it be the Ethereum validators and you look at the Bitcoin miners and such, uh, typically when the miners are making a lot of money because the fees are so ridiculously high, and the Ethereum validators as such, of course they're being rewarded, and there's that blessing in disguise there for them. But we have to keep in mind. Oh, let me hurry up as my battery's getting low. But we have to keep in mind that that also discourages onboarding. And what does onboarding do? It creates liquidity, right? So without that liquidity, the dreams of being able to basically liquidate your bags is unrealized. And this is what generally happens in most of the cryptocurrency projects. And it's why I try to take this approach with many of you all. And it is because it is only a very small minority of people who are benefiting from cryptocurrencies for these very reasons, right? So, because remember, the majority of people aren't the ones participating on the chains with high gas fees. The majority of people aren't the ones getting in early, having the mental aptitude to understand cryptocurrency. And so, whereas these are normal, natural things, they are also the things that are part of our job to create solutions.
Yesterday, somebody gave us $10 million.
Right?
Just one person gave us $10 million. And I don't.
So that moves us along to, for those of you seeking economic prosperity through cryptocurrency, right? The ones who haven't achieved it yet. And raise your hand if you have achieved it, right? If you're really a benefactor in this space, because I see a lot of people talking about catching this particular project and that particular project, and oftentimes I don't know their particular states in the project, right? I know the handful out of there that's doing very well, but on average, are you really one of those people? And I'm mostly speaking to many of the content influencers as well, but the audiences too. And if you're not one of those people for many of these reasons that are occurring here, right, have you considered feeless transaction chains, right? Projects like Bitcoin and MYK that we talk about a lot, we know the severity of the problem here in cryptocurrency. We know all of the setbacks with uh, driving up transaction fees to make people money, to drive up token prices and such. We know the many shortcomings of that, right? And so many of us out here, I won't say many, the ones who I think truly understand the problems and really have the solutions to them. Obviously, we approach this differently, right? And the way we do it is through feeless transactions. And there are several chains that are feeless, or their systems are designed in a way that they're pretty much no fees, no matter what happens, right? Because the way the system is created, technology-wise, it doesn't run into the scaling problems that these chains run into because they operate on different algorithms. Now, of course, the argument becomes many of these projects that might have very few validators, where they have, only about 30 big validators, or whether they have a very smaller amount of miners that represent, through maybe some governance model or voting system, the will of the people through some type of vote system. Some might try to argue around ways that games the system, that's not decentralized, and so on, right? But I will push back on that, right, on these various projects, and say things to you all like, uh, generally what can happen in these alternative chains, as they were, is that you're going to get a great deal more participation, and you're going to get a great deal more decentralization, right? Even if you consider all those things, right? But the decentralized chains, right, whether it be something like Pulsechain or Ethereum or Bitcoin, we're finding out that the ratio of how decentralization is horrible, right? So at some point, I think that should prove to many of us that that idea of decentralization versus many of these alternative chains that allow these governance models, or to be something like delegated proof of stake or such, is leading us in the right direction. Because if we really look at the numbers, their decentralization ratios are much better than Bitcoin, right? And many of the proof of work algos, and it's I think it's going to be better than even these this new Ethereum and Pulsechain, right? Uh, I think it certainly will be. So with Bitcoin NYK, as many of you have seen in these videos, on board you can get a wallet in like 30 seconds. You don't have to know anything about how to join any variety of social media networks, right? And the question is that where this is leading to the future? Because I can tell you all right now, this is going to be a problem that works itself out. We're not going to have to bang our heads against the wall or convince anybody of anything. What's happening, guys, is these systems are just going to become unworkable, useless. You're going to be trying to do a transaction and liquidate funds. It's never going to happen. You're going to be tied up and locked up on the chain. And the reason is because you've chosen this type of route to take with technology, and you have not been active to pursue the ones out there that serve as better solutions, right? Because you're chasing a bag, or you're chasing something like that. There's nothing wrong with chasing a bag, but it has to make sense, right? The idea of putting the bag before the technology that's worth the bag is the mistake. In other words, you guys are just wanting to drive price up and wanting something to be worth something without the technology itself, the usefulness of it, the usability of it, the use case of it, without that being important at all. And throughout the history of man, that has never been, and it never will be. And that's why we see so many of these projects go away after a short period of time, or they drop 90%, some never to return. Because the methodology in which we're using in order to pursue this, and quite frankly, the chains are incorrect. We're on the wrong blockchains. We should be on the blockchains like Hive. We should be on our project like Bitcoin has its own blockchain as well. Feeless transactions. And the worst thing that could happen by y'all trying it is you lose about 2 or 3 minutes, right? But you don't lose about $2 or $3 million. The other part is it's going to end up to feeless chains anyway, no matter what we try to do. The old guard and the old idea of miners getting paid on transactions and running nodes, we got to remember ChatGPT has come through, advances in AI and technology is making it so every developer, every programmer pretty much is going to become obsolete, right? This is something we have to accept. And because I know this is a developer-driven atmosphere, it's very resistant of them oftentimes, much like the truck driver who's about to lose his job to automated driverless truck. It is very difficult for him to accept that, and mostly will ignore that and ignore the facts of the matter. But if you understand what I'm saying, and if you don't worry, because you're going to understand either way through a forced understanding, similar to our forced holding of our money in Pulsechain until it was released. Unfortunately, this is what's going to happen, that we're going to go to some type of feeless chain or an assortment of them or a group of them, right? Because this is an economic prosperity. It's never going to be. The world's never going to accept it as such. The wallets are screwed up. The wallets are horrible. And the models that we're presenting and the technology that we're presenting with Bitcoin and YK, the high blockchain, and so on, these are just better, useful technologies, right? That's just the facts. And they're undisputable facts, right? I think I could easily argue why they are that way with anybody. And I think I would come out victorious on that, right? But I understand the nature of what drives people in crypto, but you have to understand that very nature is what is leading to the destruction of your particular projects and you being in them. And until you escape that nature and broaden your horizon and thoughts about how you engage in cryptocurrency and get out of the gambling mindset of it, because remember, any proper investment, any good investment you make, oftentimes is related to the usefulness of it and the technology of it, right? If the only argument you have is that the price went up, you're going to have to jump from project to project in record time, right? It's going to start going from you jumping from a project after about 5 or 6 months to every day. You're just going to literally be leaping out of one coin into another just to survive, right, in a space like that, if that's the type of philosophy you're embracing. Fortunately, I don't think people can embrace that type of philosophy much longer. But would love to hear you guys' thoughts on it. I know a lot of people are going to try to push through it anyway. They probably have no choice. But I don't think this is going to work well at all. I can't see any silver linings to solve this problem. This first several hours in was a very bad omen, one that I don't think will be corrected. And I do think you'll see some prices driven up, but I think you're going to see dumps happen so quickly and sustain so long that it's going to leave a lot of people unrecoverable, right? And that's how I see it. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions about it. We'd love to chat with you all about it. That's all I want to say in this video. Until next time, as always, take care of yourselves and each other. Join Bitcoin NYK. Try some of this feeless technology I'm talking about. See if you like it, because I think what's going to happen, like a light bulb, is going to hit you in the head that, hey, why weren't we just doing this anyway, right? We have so many options and technologies around the dead ends we keep hitting. And let's be clear why we're hitting those dead ends right before I get out of here. The reason you guys stay on Ethereum and Bitcoin is because large venture capitalist firms who, in a centralized manner, control these chains, have put up lots of money to take the little money you have, right? And they succeed at doing that. Unfortunately, we can't see because we don't have the precision, the vision to see that, right? And so we stay in this struggle to a certain extent. But maybe some of this will change some of your minds and perceptions to where this is going to end up, and do it in a way that's healthy to you before the bottom drops out of everything. That's all I want to say in this video. Until next time, as always, take care of yourselves and each other.